Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naran Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraят Nashtaprayasu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Atyam Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, titled Contents of the Gita Summarized, verse 17. Avinasi tu tat vidhi yena sarma midam tatam vinasham vyapasaya sa na kashit krutta marhati. Avinasi tu tat vidhi yena sarva midam tatam vinasham vyapasya sa na kashit krutta maharti. Avinashi tu tat vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasam aham vyapasasya na kaschid kartum arhati. Word by word meaning. Avinashi, imperishable. Tu, but. Tat, that. Vidhi, know it. Yena, by whom. Sarvam, all of the body. Idam, this. Tatam, pervaded. Vinasam, destruction. Avashya, so, of the imperishable. Asya, of it. Nakaschit, no one. Kartum, to do. Arhati, is able. Translation by His Divine Grace. His Divine Grace Isi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Purport. The verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is conscious. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body, in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Svetasvara Upanishad 5.9 confirms this. Balagra satabhagyasa satadha kalpitasya cha bhago jivam se vigyaya sajana nyayakalpate. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 1/100th part, and again each of such part is further divided into 100 part, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Similarly, the same version is stated. Keshagra satavhagyasya satangsha shahru shastmakam jivam sukhyam surupoyam sankhyatito hi chitkanam. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very quick spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and the consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.9, the measurement of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Esho ratmachetasa vidhitatve yasmin prana pragyatha sambhishesha pranesha chit sarvam eta prajanam yasmin vishudhe vishavatasya atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana, is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures, and it is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all-pervading Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body. According to Mundaka Upanishad, the atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity. And because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientist, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the super soul, and thus all the energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles which carry the oxygen from the lungs gather energy from the soul. When the soul passes away from this position, the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Material science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmented part of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabha or superior energy. So, whether one follows Vedic knowledge or modern science, one cannot deny the existence of the spirit soul in the body. And the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead himself. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayham Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Uttapada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sattvitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakha Vitamsha. हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपीश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमो। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So thank you so much for joining this wonderful evening Bhagavad Katha, which we are systematically doing every verse by verse. And this verse 2.17, as you can see, it's a very contentious verse because it can be interpreted very differently. And some of the key words which are explained here is yena sarvam, that means by whom all of the body. And this sarvam is often misconstrued by the fact that the different paramparas tend to believe that this sarvam eventually leads to, you have this soul, and eventually when the soul merges with the effulgence, then you become one and the same. And that is where there is a big difference, which we're going to highlight today, as to what is a body, which is exactly what this verse is all about, and what is a soul, and what is a super soul, so that we distinguish these three things for our benefit, so that we recognize and how we can use this verse for our understanding in defining the sarvam angle, because this has been misconstrued by many through the different teachings. And this is where Lord Krishna says that this body, this entire body, you think is going to be, you know, is going to be destructible when a person dies. But there is something which pervades this entire body. And what is that? So here Krishna is saying it is the imperishable soul. So when we recognize, the biggest organ of the body, what is the biggest organ of the body? The biggest organ of the body is actually skin. Skin is the biggest organ of the body. It is right from the head tip to the tip toe. It is there. But there is certain thing which energizes the biggest organ of the body, which actually transcends. So here Prabhupada explains that the size of the soul, commenting from three different Upanishads and Puranas, which we studied, that it is 1 by 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair. So as per this reference, Kesagra, Balagra is essentially the tip of the hair. So you divide the tip of the hair by 100 parts, and then divide that each 100 part into another 100 part. That is exactly the size of the soul. And there is a mention of so many scriptures. So this soul is positioned somewhere around the heart. And towards the later part of this, Prabhupada explains that this soul, triggers the flow of blood all around the body. And when this flow happens, there are certain parts of the body, whenever it gets hurt, you get a sense, or it has some consciousness. So, and the places where the blood doesn't reach, those places, for example, is not conscious. I'll just give an example. The example is your nails and your hair. Those are the places where the blood which is triggered from the soul doesn't reach. That's the reason why you could cut it without feeling hurt. And anytime when you overcut a nail and it touches the blood infusion from the soul, you feel conscious that you are hurt. So our acharyas, through various different kathas, have mentioned that this nail, hair, when they are cut, there is no sensation. That means there is no blood circulation, and that means there is no reaching of the soul. But however, soul, through its impregnation through blood, reaches all the parts of the body, and it resides alongside the heart. So the question becomes, when they do the heart transplant, where does the soul go? Does it leave the body? Actually, we should think the soul is actually is around the heart, not in the heart. So whenever we think about a situation where you are trying to do something nice in the form of giving nice tasty food to someone, he gets he or she gets attracted to the person. Sometimes you come up with nice music, nice Krishna music, and the person gets attracted to it. So this attraction through the senses, through this nice taste or through this nice hearing, is very limited. But if you have caught somebody's heart, if you have really touched somebody's heart, the person will go miles to recognize your help. And that is exactly where the soul resides. So if you have touched somebody's heart, the person is going to remember, because the transcendental part and parcel of the Supreme is sitting near the heart, and that is where, if you have touched the heart, you have touched everything. And that is exactly what His Divine Grace, when He came to this place, there were new people who are joining the movement. He actually touched everybody's heart by pure humility, and that is exactly we are going to discuss here. So the soulfulness is around the heart. If you have touched somebody's heart, you have touched Him. And that is where the question becomes, soul is actually driving us, right? And the body is like a car where the soul is a driver. But the question becomes, is soul enough? Is soul alone enough to guide the body? And that is where, in Bhagavad Gita 13.3, chapter 3, verse 13, Krishna explains, Kshetra Jnana Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetru Bharata Kshetra Jnanam Yat Tach Jnanam Matam Mama. That means there is somebody else who is actually seated alongside the soul, and that soul is actually somebody who is controlling all the souls. And that's where Krishna says Kshetra means, this Kshetra means it's actually the body in this context. So the person who knows all the bodies, this body and all the body, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And Krishna explains that the knowledge of this entire bodies is known by somebody who knows the part and parcel from where all the souls emanate. And then in 1861, where Krishna says, Ishvara Sarvabhutani Hrideshe Arjuna Sthiti Brahmya Sarvabhutani Jnanaruti Maya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart and is directing the wanderings of living entities. So the example we gave, where you have the driver driving the car, that is not a complete knowledge. There is somebody else who is seated in the car, actually, who is directing the driver to drive, accordingly. You might have, gone to India. Sometimes what happens, you hire a driver. The driver is very new. He is a young person, and this Prabhu is driving you from A to B. But along with the driver, you have your senior member, your dad, or somebody very veteran-like person who is sitting in the car. This young person, he can take you from A to B based on his latest knowledge. But this senior person who is seated in the car, he has been there, he has cycled there before. He has walked in that path from A to B before. He knows inside out. When he gives the direction, and when the driver follows, then that knowledge is even more powerful. So here our acharyas give the example of two birds sitting on a tree, right? So you have a tree where one bird is sitting and he is eating the fruits of the tree. And there is another bird who is seated in the same branch, very co-located, and he is watching the other bird eat the fruits of the tree. So here our acharyas mentions, so in this example, the bird who is eating the fruits of the tree is actually the soul, and the tree is the body, and this other bird who is watching the bird eating the fruits of the karma or through the body or the tree in this example is actually the Paramatma. So soul and super soul are all located, co-located with us. But the person who understands that Krishna is watching us all the time can recognize the value of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So once one guru caught three students and gave them three apples. And they said, and the guru said, go eat this apple where no one can see you. So the first person was very hungry, so we went to the back of the Gurukul, he ate it and came back. I have eaten when no one was there and nobody saw me. I just ate it in the back of the Gurukul where no one goes. That's not a great place, so no one goes. So, I ate the apple where no one was there. The second person went a bit far off and he went to a place where, it's very far from the civilization, and he ate it and he came back probably after 5-6 hours. And to Guru he said, I ate it at this point where no one was there, not a single thing was there, not a single bird was there. And then there's this third person, third disciple. He went and he didn't come back for 2-3 days. These other two people were worried as to, wow, the other disciples were worried as to, where is this person? Where did he go to eat the apple where nobody could see him? So then he went, and then after 2-3 days he came back, and once they saw him, people were very happy. The guru was very happy. Where did you go? We were thinking that you didn't eat. So he said, no, I couldn't eat for 2 days because anywhere I went, the trees were there, the birds were there, the insects were there, these little reptiles were there, and they all have soul. And alongside soul, there is a super soul who is guiding them in every step of the way. And they are all looking at me. So when Paramatma in everyone is looking at me, how can I eat the apple? So he came back without even eating the apple. So the moral of the story here is, whatever we do, wherever we go, the Supreme Personality is watching. And if we think we have this body and we have property, we have the ownership of this body, and I can do anything with this body, that is exactly when the problem happens. And the example where this problem happened can be linked to the suicides, because the people think that this body belongs to me and I can take it away. Actually, there is a soul which, when leaves the body, then we say that the consciousness is there's no consciousness, because the soul has left the body. When the soul has left the body, the consciousness goes, and that is a true indication that the person has gone to a different state of consciousness. So when you think about consciousness, essentially there are 4 kinds of consciousness. One is when we're fully awake, that we can call it as Jagruti, where we are all awake, we are all hearing things, talking about things, eating. So that's the awakened state. Then the second state of this state of consciousness is Swapna. When you are dreaming, you are basically semi-sleep, and you are half asleep, half awake, and then you are dreaming something. That's the state of consciousness. The third state of consciousness is Shushupti. That means you are sleeping dreamlessly. That means you slightly deeper sleep, but you are not really dreaming. And the fourth state of consciousness we all will get to is the consciousness of death, where you are in extended sleep. And when you are in extended sleep, that's when the soul within us has actually left us, and it's going to transmigrate and is going to reside somewhere else and is in transit, and that is the extended sleep. So here the consciousness is so critical in recognizing the science of spirituality, because this is a pure science. And as Prabhupada here is quoting about the blood circulation, triggered by the soul, and how through this process of Hatha Yoga, we are controlling the air, encircling the body. And those are all material benefit leading to liberation. But what is Krishna consciousness? The Krishna consciousness is a situation where you're not truly worried about this process of liberation. This Hatha Yoga is actually a glorified exercise. Whenever you think about exercise and you're trying to control this air, which is good in a way, we're not really saying that is technically bad, but that is just a means. The real end is actually to devoid ourselves from all these entanglements, the material entanglements, so that we get a love for Godhead. So the example there, when we talk about our purity of the soul, where we can grow a love for Godhead, is, let's think about the rainwater, which is actually, when it is emanating from the clouds, is actually the purest form of rainwater. It's so pure you can't even think about. The spring water is not even pure in comparison to when the water leaves the clouds. It is the purest form. But when the water travels, as it comes down, 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 and then it meets the industrial air. And sometimes if you're wearing a white shirt and you get into a rain and you happen to be in one of the metropolis in India, you'll realize that your shirts have black drops in there, because when water, the purest form of water, comes in contact with the pollutant, it actually hits you with the black marks. Likewise, the soul is the purest form. But when soul comes down and comes in contact with the illusion or the Maya, then it becomes gradually impure, which is exactly how the water transcended from the cloud with the purest form, and then eventually it became very dark or very blackish. So, which is why we have to recognize this science of soul, science of supersoul, and the connection with our body. Because unless we deeply study this sarvam, the sarvam means all of the body, but the challenge with that, with many other teachings, is they think that by merging with the Supreme, we acquire all the qualities and then we become God. And that is exactly where we should recognize that whatever we do, we can never be the super soul. We can never be the Supreme Personality of God. And this example by Swayam Bhagavan Krishna exemplifies that this body may perish, the body after 60, 70, 80 may perish, but the driver of the body, which is the soul, where the soul is seated alongside the super soul, they are not going to perish. They are going to transmigrate. And that is why, if you think that this entire body's consciousness is triggered from the soul, because the soul alongside the heart is triggering the blood flow all over the body, and wherever there is no blood, there is no consciousness, which is exactly why you can get rid of your nails and hairs without any issue. But that little tip of 1/110,000th of the tip of the hair is so powerful, it provides energy to the entire body. It provides consciousness to the entire body. You may have the big machinery, and then in the corner you have this little battery which is triggering the life of the body. Now you have the electric cars where the entire car is driven by a battery. If the battery is gone, there's so that the battery is energizing the entire car. Likewise, the soul is energizing the entire of the body, and soul is part and parcel of the of Krishna. But when the battery goes bad, you replace the battery, then the car runs. So when we are our body through this the process of janma mrityu jara vyadhi gives up, it actually transmigrates where the battery gets into another body, and it thrives based on that. So the science of the soul and body and super soul is very, very clear by and is explained so nicely by His divine grace in this verse. So once we know that the spark, or if there is no sun, there will be no sun rays. If there is no person behind the sun, there will be no sun or the ball of fire. So when we think about this absolute truth, it is very critical to recognize that we cannot accept the Brahmajyoti as it is, which is typically the tendency of the Jnanis to think that the Brahmajyoti is enough. But Brahmajyoti is actually not enough. It may be coming from the ball of fire where the yogis may be meditating on, but the ball of fire has a person behind it. He has a name. The name is Vivaswan. And once you want to know about Vivaswan, you will know about the ball of fire. And once you know about the ball of fire, you'll know about the rays. So the rays, if we know about the rays, it's not enough to know the ball of fire. You may not know about the ball of fire. You may not know the person behind the ball of fire. Likewise, if you know the ball of fire, you may not know the person behind the ball of fire in these two methods. But if you know the person behind it, you'll definitely know how the ball of fire is emerging from Vivaswan and how the rays are emanating from the ball of fire. So these three paths, as I mentioned, the Jnanis, Yogis and Bhaktas, respectively, is critical in understanding that this body has a soul. Without the soul, the body leaves consciousness and we are unconscious. And then there is a super soul which is watching it. So with that, I would like to end here to stay within the confines of these words. A lot can be spoken, but we don't want to think that this body, as it is part and parcel of Krishna as well, because without the spark there is no body. We have to take care of the body, but we should not be taking care of the body so much that we lose the focus of the soul. The example there is, if we are in a prison and we have a golden covering or the golden boundary, we're still in prison. So instead of really powering and hankering for the outside aspects, if you can really cleanse our get rid of the anarthas, cleanse ourselves, make our soul pure, unlike the rain example where it's flowing through pollutants and at the end it is turning to black, and make it spotless by the chanting of the holy name. Because the chanting of the holy name is a process, it's the medicine actually for this age of Kali, and it's very simple. But in this age of Kali, in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, anytime you give a simple message, people will not accept it, because they will think that how can this be so simple? How can the Supreme Personality's understanding be so simple? Because the people are not simple, they cannot understand a simple message. And in order to understand a simple message, we have to have faith on the Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, and then the simple method will percolate inside us. Otherwise we will never be simple, and we will always question the process. So with that, that's why there is a mention that we should be intelligent, but we shouldn't be chatur, or we should not be cunning. So this is built into our dealings, which will get us into a situation where we accept more and more of these nectarian ideas from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by being simple in our thought process, intelligent and enthusiastic, and not be because it's a very, very simple process. In order to receive simplicity, we have to be simple, and we have to look at it from a very simplistic perspective. So with that, I'll end here. Thank you so much for your attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.